Idris.
And the same is my pronoun, is also Idris. I am one of the very rare people that does that. The reason being is because we want to talk about being non-binary and everything. One of the things that led me to being non-binary is just the human rights campaign. Um, we talk about injustice amongst us as people of color, but it's just injustice, period, across the board. And I want people to remember me for Idris. I don't want them to try to remember what pronoun. I don't want you to remember whether I'm Dom, sub, femme, masculine. Idris, plain and simple.
Fascinating. That's actually an interesting take on it. There are some folk that use like the pronouns they and then either he or she.
Hmm.
And it's always interesting to hear the logic from that. One common one that I heard before was it's for the sake of advocacy of the they, them, theirs pronoun. The idea that, yeah, if you say they, it won't bother me kind of thing. I like it just grammatically because it takes the guesswork out, like you don't have to assume he, she, whether they told you or not. It's just for the sake of simplicity, just go with they. But I do find it interesting of like just take out pronoun from what it sounds like. It seems like you're suggesting taking out pronouns altogether and just reference the person and the identity. And I love that.
Yes.
And so with that, gosh, I want to go into some of the questions. Or at first, if you, well, yeah, let's just go straight into the questions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because the
Go
major
straight
part,
there.
and good, and the major part of this, and I forgot to share, is that part of the point of the Transparency Project is to have the community tell the viewer who they are, or to empower the community to tell us who they are in their own voice and light. And so I believe strongly in letting the source tell you from themselves,
Hmm.
rather than speak for others. So I'm going to throw these questions real quick, and then the rest of the time will be, time for you for whatever story or lesson or message you want to leave. So the first question is, what caused you to be an activist for your community, or at least to be engaged within your community?
Um, I seen too many individuals like myself. Um, and what I mean, like myself, is we are not considered masculine, but we're also not considered feminine. So we're left out here in this realm to figure out life on our own. And think about it, life is hard enough. But now you have all these mixed emotions inside of you. You don't quite feel like a cis male, but you don't feel like a cis female either. No part of me feels like or wants to try to portray a female or a woman, and it's no disrespect. Um, and I just seen too many individuals like me taking their own life, um, resulting to selling themselves on the street, being homeless, kicked out, having drug habits, um, and I'm proud to say, and not ashamed to say, just about everything that I just named are things that I've had to overcome in my struggle to be who I am today. Um, the only thing that kind of differs for me is I was actually blessed, not luck, not fortunate. I was truly blessed to have individuals put in my life to open doors, to show me different avenues to help me get the counseling and the treatments that I needed. But it's not available to everyone. It is available, but the knowledge of where to go, who to ask and what to say is not out there. Not in, excuse me, not in the POC community, people of color. It's hard for us to find these avenues. One, because it's not advertised as much as it is in other ethnic groups. And two, and this is the one that like destroys us more than ever, our own self-pride and not wanting to ask for the help, not wanting to admit within that I need some help figuring things out. Not that there's something wrong with me on the inside, but I need help processing and trying to figure out where I am and what I want to be. That's why I did this. It's too many lost people, and you don't have to be.
I wonder if some of that can also be from like internalized, you name it, internalized racism, internalized phobia of whatever types. I wonder if those play a role. What is your take on that?
It does. It plays a role. An organization that I have been with, and we can talk about this also a little bit later. By now, I'm pretty sure I'm an international title. I competed international level, so I'm pretty sure everyone probably knows this. But I've been HIV positive for about 20 years, and it's hard. And you have to. I have a group that I talk to. It's a lovely organization called Rain. Um, and by me learning to open up and discuss and talk with them, I was fortunate enough to get the help and to realize that there was nothing wrong with me. It was okay to be different. And that's something that bothers me with a lot of people saying, you know, you don't, this isn't right. You can't feel like this. How can you tell someone how they feel on the inside? How can you tell them what their mind is processing?
That's good food for thought because I always thought about the end about, you let them tell you. The best you can do is show resources and let them know of things that are recognized. And again, let them process that with some guidance, with questions or whatnot. And then
Yeah,
again, by the end of the day, you wait for them to tell you who you are.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's an important part. When I first started this project and started connecting with the community, I connected through Transcend Charlotte, and started going to their support groups for the trans community, and I learned so much. But one of the major things that was a takeaway from me was that essentially when someone tells you who they are, believe them.
yeah,
And um, I think that's an important part. And also in conversation, I realized that in storytelling as well, as people tell their stories and share their stories in a way, we find these relatable, universally human experiences through these stories. It wasn't until I started going to the support groups and started thinking and relating to like some of my own issues. So like I'm a cisgender male, but growing up in a culture that was very focused on like male female stereotypes, it was common to be told to man up whenever I was emotionally compromised or upset of something or whatever the case. Or it was often to because I have a very soft voice and I walk kind of funny. And so like for a long time, people just assumed I'm feminine. And that sort of constant struggle of trying to like keep my masculinity or like keep agency over my masculinity, like I can relate to that in some degree when someone talks about, you know, identifying as male but having to deal with people gaslighting them. It's like, oh well, you're a male. Do you have what's between those legs to verify? And it's like, that's not the point. You know, I am who I say I am, period. And that's one of the things that's constantly reinforced in those support group meetings of like, people are who people are, the identities that they say they are, regardless if you see the evidence or not. And if you and the evidence itself is technically none of your business, you know?
None of your business.
Right. And
It
so
is.
yeah.
It, it's so hard. Like for me, for the trans community, like that whole word trans for me, it kind of irritates me. It irritates me very badly for the sole fact of that's they're not trans. Once you've gone through that transition, once you've completed, and once you've gotten to the step where you're finally, whether it's your breast implants, whether it's having your breasts removed, taking estrogen and testosterone, whatever it is, whenever you reach that point, for me, stop calling them trans. That's an insult because they're not transitioned to anyone. They are comfortable with who they are. They found their true self. That is a man. That is a woman. I don't care nothing about no cisgender because if they want to know the truth, if everybody wants to know the truth, everybody on earth is a cisgender female. Everybody.
You know, I- that makes a bit of sense.
Because do you not know why when you take your baby mama to the gynecologist and y'all going to the OBGYN while she pregnant and you can't get an ultrasound until she's in the middle of that second trimester? And sometimes it's all the way into the third trimester because you know why? The baby has two holes and a knob. You are a female. So
Wow.
all it is, men that's walking around here, baby, go back to school. Go back to anatomy, physiology, and biology. Study the circle of life. You a female.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. That's interesting because I thought you were going to argue everyone's technically either intersex or non-binary because it doesn't form until you get the chemicals needed. But still, point being, wow. So, wow. Going back in though, and you know what you've already shared so far, you kind of tapped into the next like three questions because the next thing was like, what stories would you have to share? What hardships have you overcome? But I think to a point that you made earlier about, you know, a misconception about the transgender identity. You know, I think that that makes me think about even the way in which going about this as someone who wants to learn more, someone who wants to like promote the pursuit of understanding more of an identity or community. And so I think you already shed a lot of light for it. And, you know, what from someone who's starting from absolutely nothing, you know, what are some of the advice you would have to offer for someone who is fresh to everything about learning about transgender identities, to learning about non-binary, to learning about all of this? Like what would be the first things you would advise them to go learn?
I would say first, I would go and get some reading material and actually get something that's like legitimate, fact based, and learn what that true term is, transgender. Learn what non binary is. Just simply for the book definition of what it is, first, to grasp that. before you even expand to talking to anyone else, because the thing about trans and not the non-binary lifestyle, everybody may be different. Some people are the same. Like, for instance, me, with me using just Idris as my pronoun. Now, you might not find any other non-binary person that does that. Everybody else might use they, them, or, you know what I'm saying, whatever their preferred bitch. Some people use bitch, some people use whore. So it just depends on what they particularly want to choose. But um, find out what it is. Find out what they are. Then once you take that, try to reach out to an actual individual who who's openly non-binary, who's openly trans. And just really, because most people in my situation, in our situation, we don't mind talking to people, because at this point in my life, I can interpret, or I can get a vibe when you are coming to me to be inquisitive and gain knowledge, and when you're just trying to make a mockery of me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would tell them do it that way. And I mean, anybody who is watching this, I am MX Idris Dior Onyx on social media. You know, feel free to inbox me. I don't mind talking, sharing more intimate things about my story, my life, my struggles. I mean, because you know, I've been in a very bad domestic violence relationship. I've had to survive that. I went back to school and got my education. I had to, with that,
Nice.
with that, with that abusive relationship came a drug habit, and also came with me being HIV positive. I defeated that drug habit with no rehab, just with my own will of saying that I can do better. This is not what I was put here to do. Um, and went back, got my hair license, started to really think about who I was, blocked out society, just totally blocked them out, and had to think about who I was. Who is Idris? Where does Idris want to go? What does he want to do? And it was kind of like magic. It was like everything just fell into place. Now, don't get me wrong, it fell into place, but now there were still stumbling blocks and trials and tribulations along the way, because we all know anything that's good for you isn't easy to you. And
Mm,
my thing is, I can't respect anything that I don't work for.
mm.
Anything that's think about it. Anything that's really given to you, you don't treat it as well as something that you worked hard to buy or to obtain yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I really had to fight my way back. And I had to put a lot of, it was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of you know, from not wanting to go back out there and do drugs, to go ahead and go to sleep because I had to get up and be in hair school in the morning. You know, I went from, I mean, like literally, I know it may sound cliche, but literally, I went from catching 3 buses to hair school with 4 mannequin heads and a duffel bag to, by the time I ended, I was working a part-time job and had bought one car and was working on buying another.
Oh, wow.
So but I was determined that I was going to make it, that I was not going to be another statistic. Plus, unlike a lot of people in my situation, I had people behind me that were saying, you can do this. We
Mm,
all make mistakes. We got you. This, we're not saying, you know, this was just the road that you had to go down, but we got you. We see you. Keep going. You know, people would come and pick me up and take me to school. People would bring me home from school. People would buy me lunch and, you know, things of that nature. And it just came when it was like I was standing on my own. And once I got to standing on my own, I felt incomplete.
mm.
Um, I did, and I mean, I'm standing on my own. I have the love of my life.
Yeah. Congratulations.
I was, and when I say the love of my life, when I say that nobody can't tell me that I'm not blessed and very highly favored, I'm so blessed that the Lord favored me to a year to the date that I was born. This man was born also.
Wow.
I was
That's a
born
story.
I was born June 1st, 1979. He was born June 1st, 1980.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And and it was also me, and to let that in, well, I had to let go a lot of
Yeah.
stereotypes, and I had to let go of a lot of anger. You know, thinking this DL masculine lifestyle was what it was, and it was okay to be gay, but you had to be straight acting and masculine. My husband is actually someone that I would never have talked to. He's so soft, and he's like a teddy bear. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm used to the rough, rugged hood boy, the dope dealer type. That's what I'm used to. He's total opposite from that. Go to work every day. I mean, showers me with love, give attention. Like, he's amazing. He's phenomenal. But that took me saying, let me not worry about society. Let me quit putting everything on a fantasy. Of course, we all have that fantasy man that we want. I prayed for him. God sent him to me. No, he wasn't the exact body build, um, financial, this sexual goddess demon, that we all want. But the one thing he was a loving, open, honest, optimistic, patient, caring man. That he was. And he did
Mm.
something for me that made me check myself. This man literally dated me for 6 months. Where do you hear that? No, people don't understand when I say dated. I'm talking about we didn't kiss, we didn't hold hands. We just talked, laughed, went to the movies, went to dinner. He would come and pick me up, open the door. He dated me for 6 months before he even tried to even bring anything up about, sex or can I have a kiss? Do you mind if I kiss you? And 6 whole months. That's how I knew that this was the man for me. And he never pressured me into anything. It was never any pressure. I'll never forget. Here in Charlotte, it's Outback on East Boulevard. We would meet at Outback every Friday. And it would be one Friday, because we got paid on opposite weeks. So one Friday I would pay, and the next Friday he would pay. And then it was a Blockbuster that was right there from it. And we would go there, we would eat, have a few drinks, and then we would go to Blockbusters and we would do the little deal where we would buy like 3 DVDs for $20 or 4 DVDs
Mm-hmm.
for $20. And then our DVD collection is ridiculous. And so we would just go back to the house and we would watch DVDs and we would talk, we would laugh. And, I would go spend time with his family. He spent time with my family. And it was just something different. And I knew that I could not let that go. And
Mm.
here we are 13 years later. And
Oh my
as a matter of
gosh.
fact, we're 13 years later, and Friday coming will be 6 years that we have been legally married.
Oh my gosh. Y'all got married on November 20th?
Yes.
Oh, what that is a day to remember. Wow.
Yes.
That is wow, that's beautiful.
But even with all of that, like I said, I still felt incomplete.
Okay.
I did. I have joined Onyx. I started my leather journey, but it was something still that just didn't. It was. I just didn't feel complete. I felt like my mission had actually just started.
Mm. Is this when you began MX, I believe you called it?
Yes, and
Oh,
and so I went to the Leather Run here, which is owned by the Tradesman Leather um,
okay.
organization. They run a contest which is called North Carolina Leather, which
Okay.
makes you a state title holder. I actually um, ran in 2017. I was not ready to be a title holder. I wasn't.
Mm, okay.
I had I was still a little bit shy and timid. Um, I still needed to learn some things. I needed some mentoring. So unfortunately, I did not take the title that year, but I did win the weekend. Everyone loved me. They loved my presence. They loved my message. And they were like, you just need a little bit more sharpening. We need to pull you together just a little bit, but we see you. So I took that next year and I got my scores back from the judges. I talked to my judges. I went into the community. I talked to the community, found out what they wanted in a title holder. I did more research on this, just North Carolina, period, the title, period. Found out that if I was to compete again in 2018, that I would be the only the second person of color, and we're talking about a title that has been around for probably 20 plus years or longer. Um, and I would only be the second person of color to hold this title. I was the first Onyx individual to hold the title. Um, and
Oh, wow.
and I went on ahead and I decided that I wanted to rewrite history, period, for the state of North Carolina. And I felt like it was time to bring them into a new era as far as people of color are coming out more in the leather industry, in the leather world, and non binary are coming out, and we can be just as rugged and rough or feminine and soft as you want us to be. And I said, you know what? So I went and I competed again, 2018, came back and floored everybody, annihilated it.
Wow.
Like right now, they will tell you if you ask them what is the most memorable fantasy that you can remember from the
Mhm.
Tradesman Leather Run, and they will say Idris Dior's fantasy, either one of them, because I had to do it twice, and
Oh,
they
my.
did one. Yeah, I did twice. I did two different ones twice,
Wow.
and
My
yeah.
gosh.
So that year I came back, it was a landslide. I won it. And so I had been doing research and everything. And so they called me and they had asked me, the tradesmen, they called me the next week and they normally have Mr., Miss, or Mrs. And so Timothy Lee, who owns the title, who runs the North Carolina title, he called me and he says, what do you want to have on your vest? And he was like, I'm not trying to, he was like, no, I'm being dead serious. I'm not trying to be funny. He was like, I don't know if you want Mr., Ms., or Mrs. I don't know. He was like, out of respect for you, what would you like? I said, to be honest with you, I don't use any of those identifiers. I would actually like to be your first ever history making MX title holder, non-binary. And
Wow.
he was like, okay, I have no problem with that. Let me get back to the tradesmen and let them know, just to see, you know what I'm saying? They may need you to come in and just all of it, like you just explained it to me and everything. They may need you to come in. I said, I have no problem with that, of course. So he called me back in a matter of like hours. And he was like, you got it. We'll put it on your vest. It's totally fine. And I was just like, yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to talk to Timothy about this next time we meet. Oh, that's so
So,
cool.
so it was like, I was just like, it just overwhelmed me. And I was just like, oh
Of
my God.
course.
So I'm really like, I'm taking this platform. Like, they're really letting me do this. And so, like, once I did that, then like this whole like door just opened. Like I am right now, I am up for going back to what's called Sin in the City, which is International Person of Leather, which I'm currently Southeast Person of Leather 2019-2020 because of COVID. We can't have another one. We'll talk about how I made history with that title as well. Um,
Oh yeah, I'd
but
love to learn that.
so I'm like, yes, I'm paving the way. So then when I do that, I am getting ready. My next step from that is Southeast Leatherfest.
Southeast
So
Leatherfest. Okay, South.
everybody is asking me, are you gonna do self? You're doing self, and this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And I was a little bit scared. And the reason why I was scared was because, well, the thing about it
Why?
was I had did so good at North Carolina the 2 years. Even when I didn't win,
Mm-hmm.
Lady Catherine, who's over Southeast Leatherfest, sent people looking for me.
Oh
Like
wow.
she wanted me to run. Like they had heard
Yeah.
about me and heard about my message, and she was just like, "I want you to run. I want you to run." And so I had to turn them down, and I turned them down, and then I told them why. I was like, "Listen, I don't mean any harm, but like I know you followed my message and everything like that. And the one thing I always say is, the only time you fail is when you don't try."
Mm,
So I was like, I've got
mm.
to try again for North Carolina. I have a family here and people here who have watched me grow
Yeah.
and are helping me. And they're not my fans, they're not my supporters, they're my family.
Right.
And I want to show them that just because I didn't succeed the first time, it doesn't mean that I'm too cocky or I don't feel like I'm too good to not come back and try again.
Right.
And like they teach us when we're younger, when once you don't succeed, you got to get up and dust your stuff off and try again. So I had to come back and I tried it again and I took it. And then I went on to compete at Self. Um, and Self was a phenomenal experience. I did not realize how much of a family fan base I had until I got there. It was just very, very overwhelming and very emotional for me, like the whole weekend. It was just nice to see people support me. Um,
Mm.
because believe it or not, individuals like myself and a lot of trans individuals, especially the trans women, when it comes to the gay black male population or community, we are ostracized. and we are looked at as like less than or an embarrassment, or we are incapable of giving you masculinity or even topping you, so to speak. Um, so it was very lonely. Um, it does get very lonely. And that was one reason why I wanted to keep going and to reach more people, to let people know, hey, listen, we have a whole group of individuals over here that we're forgetting about, that are killing themselves, that are being killed at a very, 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 very alarming rate, that is being swept up under the rug because we as a society, we as a community are not speaking up for these individuals more.
Right.
And we're not saying, hey, that's a person, regardless, trans, non binary, androgynous, that is a human being, that is a person.
Right. And it's interesting you bring it up, especially within the Black community, because that's not new either. It's not new. Like, it blew my mind a couple years ago. A relative enlightened me that, like, the Million Man March, that was organized by a gay man, a gay Black man. But when we learn about it, I've never heard his name until those 2 years ago when my uncle told me about him. And from personal opinion and perspective, like, it is a fair criticism that when Black Lives Matter became recognized worldwide, that there was a fair bit of criticism about, like, how do the Black communities treat the LGBT communities. But what I really am proud of is that shortly after that came with, yes, all Black Lives Matter, but also the focus on Black trans lives matter. Um, because in I think that's the thing when you talk about advocacy and supporting any community, like, there's an intersectionality. There's an issue on both sides, but um, there's still an active effort to address that. And I think accepting those sort of challenges and then addressing it is what helps us move forward. Um,
Yes.
I, I was just moved by that, and I think there's something to learn of that. So on that note, um, then you're just on it today because you're always on it every time I spoke with you. Next question I was going to have is, how can North Carolinians be better allies? And I think you gave a lot of good hints to that. The people who pushed you when you were going through school, through hair school, the people that kept pushing you on it and reaffirming that you can do this. And going back to what we were just saying about, it helps for someone to provide resources for you to consume on your own, but then wait for you to tell them who you are. And
Yes.
based on that, informing them how to help you, like, even more. And it becomes, I don't want to call it a vicious cycle. I want to call it a prosperous cycle.
Yes.
And I think your story sheds light to that in some degree, but I bring it up again to see if there's anything you can elaborate more when we talk about support, when we talk about, a family and community, at least here in North Carolina. And I wasn't sure if you had any more to support or any more to share with that.
Um, what see now it's hard due to COVID.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Oh, God.
But now the one thing I can say is here in, especially in the Charlotte metro area and things, that if they get in contact with RAIN, Regional AIDS Interfaith Network,
Mm-hmm.
they will put you in the right directions, whether you are positive or not. We
Mm.
believe in supporting they strongly believe in supporting the LGBT community, period. Just because they know that there's a lack of resources and things like that. Start there. Um, and for individuals who may be, because this is something that we really, really, really have to talk about, and get stronger on and letting new avenue, letting people know that there are avenues. If for any reason people are feeling lonely, down, like you are at your lowest, please Google and try to find a number for the Trevor Project.
Mm-hmm.
They will help you as well. Rain and the Trevor Project. Rain is a local, is locally. The Trevor Project is nationally.
Mm.
They are good allies and good resources. Um,
Good.
you know, my thing is to a lot of business owners and
Mm-hmm.
companies. They may want to look into maybe starting to put up, little stickers in their windows for, like, you can get a sticker that has the non-binary flag on it, that has the LGBT flag on it, just to let people know, and the trans flag on it, to let individuals know, hey, this is a safe haven. You're welcome here. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? And also look for. I always tell people, and some people say, "Oh, is that what that means?" It's a yellow sign. It's shaped like a diamond, and it has two people on it that are hugging. Those are safe haven places. As a
Yes.
matter of fact, if you go to the woodshed, it's one on their door,
Yep.
and you can go there when
That's
they're
an excellent sign.
when they're doing business operations, and
Mm-hmm.
say that you need help, and they have numbers to call people that will come there and get you and try to help you get the help that you need.
Mm.
So yes, look for those. It's a yellow and black sign. It's shaped like a diamond, and it has like two yellow people on it. That two black figures that are hugging, and that's an indication, letting people know that that's a safe haven, and you can go there, and they have numbers where they can call people to utilize and help you.
That's beautiful to know. And to add on to that, going back to what we talked about before, you had mentioned about, do some research for people who are just now learning about all of this, to do some homework, essentially, find some trusted sources. And I feel like there's a hodgepodge, but to your point, on the national level, I believe those organizations would have some information.
Mhm.
But even on a local level, if you look up your local organizations, like here in Greensboro, we have Guilford Green Foundation, and they have a library of like I even checked out a book in their library about like medical terms on for people that are in their transition, and also for non-binary. There was a couple of books from accounts of family members of trans and non-binary people. Yeah.
Now, have you ever just Googled and asked how many sexual, excuse me, how many sexual identities?
I have not. I've only relied on books. I love the internet. I'm always skeptical because I'm like,
Let me
to your point,
tell,
like
let me
which
tell
one's
you.
credible?
Well, I got heavily into it, so I know a lot
Yeah.
of it. I can tell which ones are true. But I'm
Okay.
gonna try to. I'll Google it later and forward you some on Facebook for some just to read it. But in actuality, there are about 100 to 150 different gender identities. Yes.
Wow, I can kind of believe that. There was at the Mint Museum, we had a book called Understanding Sexuality in the 21st Century. And part of the research was showing that, especially with younger generations, like people born after around 1980 and like more recent, are the main perpetrators of really challenging the preconceived norms about sexuality and gender identities. And similar to what you were saying before, I think you said about some, like there's some folk that were like their pronouns are bitch or whore or something else, like an actual object.
Mhm.
Um, and there was actually a couple that it's like their name is the pronoun. And so Again, going back to that, I just find that fascinating in the sense of uh, just challenging other dynamics and other norms that our society has set. But I digress. I would love to see those resources once you send them, and I'll make sure that they are easily available in the exhibition and in the pool project.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, and it takes a lot to people don't really realize how many sexual or just sexual gender identities that you can actually hold at one time. Like for me, I just could see in actuality, like when I did a class with KPEX and they asked me, how do I identify? I said, well, if you want to know the whole thing, the whole thing is actually I am a non-binary, pansexual, androgynous individual.
Fascinating. Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
how the pansexual. Okay, let's break it down. Okay,
Yeah.
we know off gate, black and white, the non-binary. That's just simply that I do not confide to any of the normal three sexual identities: cis male, cis female, and hermaphrodite. So, okay, that takes care of that one. Now, the pansexual, that more so is not about my gender identity. That is more so about my sexual identity. And the reason why I have come to that part of my life where I choose to be pansexual is I'm what they consider to be an energy person in the leather lifestyle. And what that means is I am blind to sexual organs and identifiers and things of that nature. It's about the energy between us. Even if you identify as a heterosexual cis male, but I just watched you do ass play with your girl. I love your technique. I love the energy that came to that. Me not trying to turn you, you being a true leather person and a true leather individual, and I come up to you and say, hey, I would like to experience ass play with you. Can we negotiate that? It's not about trying to turn you. It's not about being two men being together. For me, it's solely about the energy that you put into that ass play. That's what's that's what's driving me. That's what's getting me off. That's what's giving me the orgasm, not the nut. Because see, people don't understand a nut and an orgasm is two totally different things.
Amen to that.
But you know what I'm saying? That's why I say that that's how I'm a pansexual, because when it comes to my leather play or sexual play or even sexual desires, it's about the energy for me. It's not about dom, feminine, masculine, submissive. It's not about any of that. It's about the energy between us. Because at the end of the day, if we have no energy, you could be the baddest man in the game. But if there's no energy between us, the scene gonna be a flop regardless.
Right.
And and so and that's why I guess I'm considered like a snooty tooty player. But I had to learn that because one, I do battle depression. And like I said, I am an energy person. So if you had something that was on you that had bothered you, you might have been mad going into our play session. Subconsciously, you were mad and had a bad day going into our play session. You don't even realize it, but you're taking that bad energy and putting it in our play session. So
Mm.
now we're done. Yeah, it was a beautiful time. We had a hell of a time because you took that frustration out. But now you put it in me because I'm an energy person and I absorb energy.
Mm-hmm.
So now 2 hours later or the next morning when I wake up angry and don't even know why.
Wow.
So I have to be careful who I engage with. That's why I don't even like for people to really even touch me when I'm out. And most people that tell me, like, even when I do my appearances, my people that go with me say, they let it be known, listen, we don't mean any harm. He's not that type of person. He's actually very nice, but he does not like to be touched unless he engages it first. Please do not touch him. And that has to go back to that abusive relationship I was in. You know what I'm saying? When you spend, like 6 months almost with somebody slapping the shit out you whenever they felt like it. You know what I'm saying? So when people walking up to you or engage you or somebody grab you a certain way, it kind of brings me, pushes me back sometimes if you catch me on the wrong day and you don't know me. And that even goes into that's why I take my play so serious. And once again, I don't just play with anyone because sometimes when you do BDSM play, some of the things you do, sometimes you go so deep into your headspace, it could take you back to a place sometimes that's not a nice place for you.
Mm.
So whoever, if I'm playing with you, you need to be able to know and feel that energy, whether I say it or mumble it, speak it, make a noise, a movement, or whatever. We need to be so in tune to where you can say, okay, we done. Let's go ahead and bring you back down.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that explains like the pansexual part. And I had to, and I had to check myself because my thing was, how can I sit here and say, I want people to be open minded, non judgmental towards me, but then I want to be judgmental and sarcastic and stereotypical towards other people?
Mm.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Interesting.
It doesn't work like that. So for me to sit here and say, oh, I'll never play with a woman, she can't do nothing for me. But I'll get mad at this brother over here because he'll say, "Oh, you too femme for me. I don't want to mess with you." How can I get mad at him for saying that when I just basically did the same thing to this girl over here, and the only thing she wanted to do was exchange energy, just like I wanted to do with him. So I had to
Right.
check myself and to
Mm.
say, you know what? Like met the man and them saying how high. Don't be scared. It's only pussy. But you know what I'm saying? I had to, but I basically had to, check myself and say I could really be missing out on some good energy.
Mm.
It's not like I haven't been with a woman before,
Right.
So I have opened myself up to it. I'm glad I have because I've had some beautiful, actually, to be honest with you, I've had
Yeah.
better experiences with women than I have with gay men.
I think about, and I feel like that ties back to what we were even talking about before, like the societal pressures, especially with toxic masculinity, that prohibits a lot of people from embracing that. And it's like the sort of fear of breaking those norms is like then you lose that manhood or you lose that. And that, funny enough, that goes back to gender dysphoria. You know, one of the misnomers, and long story short, one of the reasons why I started this project was, and I call them red flags. It was like a yikes moment. There's this conservative commentator, Jewish lawyer named Ben Shapiro, and he was doing like a bunch of these lectures at universities in the Midwest. And
Mhm.
he made during the live stream, he made this statement about like transgender folks being transgender as being like a mental health disorder. And he was trying to back it, saying, "Oh, there's facts about that. Look it up." And to me, that was a huge yikes. Because first of all, especially if it's untrue, which it is, um, uh, the fear factor for me was like you are using science or things that are accredited to try to support a false positive, to
And
try
see,
to support a false narrative.
that's what I don't like, and that's what gets me. Like, how can you say that they are mentally ill? You know what I'm saying? This person went to high school, graduated, got a diploma, probably went to college. I mean, so why do they have to be something mentally have to be wrong with? I don't. That's what I
Right.
don't get. It's like It's like you're saying you're in their mind and in
Mhm.
their body, and you know how they feel, and that's just not humanly possible.
Well, for me, the problem, the biggest problem is, using the truth to tell lies, so to speak. So I went and did research, and what he was referring to was the mental health condition as gender dysphoria. But here's the thing: gender dysphoria is just the discomfort of being in a body that does not uphold to your expectations. In this specific context, it's the context of gender. So because you're transgender does not necessarily mean you have gender dysphoria. And if you have gender dysphoria, it does not necessarily mean you're transgender. And here's an example from a cisgender person growing up and again having a soft voice and then being teased or your man card is rejected. Now I'm having gender dysphoria because now I'm worried about my voice. Is it deep enough, or do I have to speak with more bass? Or I was a chubby kid, so it's like, oh, get rid of these man boobs. Like, that those played that sort of fuel of like that gender dysphoria. Like this chubby body doesn't fit the masculine body that I think I need to have. And that's a problem that cisgender people can relate to, men, women, so it's not just for the LGBT community. This is a disorder that can be caused under any circumstance. Um, and so again, that was from the missing context that wasn't brought up. And also it was only like 2 articles. There's like 20 others that like talk about that. So but the point being, and why I say this, that this project is about representation, is because that guy has a following. That guy has a people that
Mhm.
listen. He has a platform. Ashley Marie Preston said it perfectly on Dr. Phil. She was like, everyone has a right to have their voice heard or to speak. Right of speech and press, but
Mhm.
a platform is a privilege.
Yes.
And she had shared that with this model who was making transphobic statements, and I think the term is turfs, basically people who argue like, oh, you need to have the genitalia to be confirmed as the identity. So, and she was saying a bunch of other stuff, but in that conversation, she was just arguing like why that is dangerous, because a platform that has a following, that has a people involved, that can be dangerous. That's part of World War II. That's also this documentary called Ethnic Notions talks about with the depiction of Black people in American culture.
Yep.
That's pre-World War II with the Jewish population. Like leading up to the issues during the war, there was propaganda that demonized this community for arguably thousands of years. Because anti-Semitism isn't new; it didn't start in the 1900s. Like that's thousands of years ago. And
Yes.
so, yeah, let's not forget. And arguably, racism could be at least about 500 years ago. Um, arguably. So with all of that, and that's kind of the intention of this, is that when we talk about using the truth, speaking the truth, I believe it's very important for people to tell their own personal truth. Um, that there's some honesty in that, and that context matters too. So,
Yeah.
with all that said, the last question I have for you, for us to wrap this up, is, you know, what message would you want for all to know and hear throughout time? Everything in your journey, your story, the lessons you just shared, what personal truths do you want heard and saved and archived on this?
Never judge a book by its cover. And just always remember, no one has the key or the book with the instructions to life. And we should just love one another the way that you love yourself and respect each other and give each other a fair chance. That same fair chance that you would want someone to give you. That same clean slate that you get every single day that you open your eyes. We get a gift every day, the gift of life. So if we can be given the gift of life every day to start over with a fresh slate and new opportunities and new doors that we can open and new doors that are open for us, why can't you do it for someone who may be a little different than you? For someone who may not be your preference? Always remember that's someone's child, that's someone's brother, sister, that's someone's mother, father. What if it was yours? That's what I would like to leave them with. Just really, let's improve ourselves. Let's check ourselves. And always remember, you may not be the one pointing the finger. You may not be the one telling the jokes or ridiculing, but you're just as bad if you stand there and listen to it and watch it. COVID should have taught us a lot. And the reason being is because all we have in this world is each other. What happened when it shut down? The nation shut down for almost 6 months. We didn't have anything to depend on but each other. I thank you guys for your time. If there's any more information that you would like to get from me, I'm always here. I'm an open book. My Facebook is MX Idris Dior. My Twitter is also MX Idris Dior. My IG is SOF, which is my pledge name from Onyx, which means sum of all fears.
Mm.
So it's an acronym. So you just take the first letter of each one.
SOAF.
Yes. And it's an
Wow.
underscore. It's an underscore between each letter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Wow.
So yes. And I just really try to live by that. My name is Sum of All Fears, and that is SUM, which means I am the equivalent to anything this nation will ever fear, because I will not stop until the message is clear that we are all human. We all have a right to be here. We all have a right to pursuit of happiness. As long as we're not mentally and physically harming ourselves or someone else, go for
MX Idris, thank you so very much.
it.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, no, this truly a privilege and an honor, and we'll definitely keep in touch. Let me go ahead and end the recording.